So this is the long-awaited, absolutely awaited by no one, I'm sure, review or discussion of the two masterworks on uh, critical race theory. Would you even say that? Well, they're suffused with critical race theory. I wouldn't say they're necessarily academic tomes on critical race theory. But they'd certainly be saturated with what critical race theory promulgates. So I'm obviously talking about White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo, my copy of which I can't actually find. I probably loaned it to someone. And my copy of Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Rennie Edo Lodge, which I read about 2 months ago now. And I thought that there was a sufficient scope to kind of compare and contrast the two to make it worthwhile, record some sort of a video. Now, what's the point, or what's the purpose of any of this? Really, all I am doing is giving my 2 cents worth to talk about the type of literature that informs the discourse around these types of issues. And I think we're doing ourselves a terrible disservice if we don't at least have like a passing understanding of this stuff. We're in Ireland, obviously, but it became clear to me after, first of all, reading, White Fragility. Well, you could say, well, that's America. They've got their own very unique set of problems, so it's nothing for us to worry about. But this, is much closer to home in Britain, and if we're just, going to kind of follow the trajectory of how the ideas that are discussed in the likes of White Fragility and books like this, we're on in Ireland on that trajectory, and we're well on it. Like it's not remotely in the distant future. We're firmly into it. So anyway, basically, I'd just very, very quickly talk about the two books individually. Robin DiAngelo's is basically her tale of how, through her professional life, she'd have felt she was a good, compassionate, treat everyone equally kind of person. And she lovingly recounts how, at some stage in her academic career, she volunteered to be some sort of an equality officer in whatever workplace. I think it might have been something in academia, and she discovered that the cultural kind of terrain had shifted under her feet regarding what equality might mean, from a racial point of view, and she had a very rude awakening, and she had her worldview shattered when she started to discover things like systemic racism and intersectionality and all these wonderful things. But she attacked it, full-bloodedly, and embarked on her career to go around, morally shaming everyone that was that sought this kind of a morality punishment beating by the kinds of people like the Robin DiAngelo that peddles this kind of thing. Now I understand as I'm talking here that all I'm really doing is poisoning the well. I'm not really getting into the nuts and bolts of her book. It's essentially just a breakdown of history that all of us, even here in Ireland, know perfectly well, trying to frame it that it's history that it's been withheld from us for very racist reasons, to try and assure us that our liberal Enlightenment values, as applied over the last 150 years, have been at best well intentioned but misguided, but really far more damagingly, it's been seeking the privilege of the white person, preserving it. You might have felt you were trying to be treat everybody decently and all that good stuff kind of person. But really, all that was happening was that you were swimming in a sea of racism, and it's the brave few like Robin who's going to break it down for you just how that works. So then, a lot of the book consists of her anecdotes from the delivering of these, struggle sessions, which is basically all they are, where people that seem to want to self-flagellate about their implicit bias and racism um, will get this morality punishment beating and pay for it. It's heavily uh, sourced, you know what I mean? So the bibliography at the back, if you can bring yourself to leaf through it and try and find some other references, it's a rogues gallery. If you follow this kind of stuff the way I have been for the last 5 years, the same names crop up over and over again. Now, there's quite a lot that could be said about that, but not here on YouTube. No, sir. Anyway, so and then it's basically kind of there's about 10 chapters of stick whacking you over the head, and then there's a little carrot of look at you're not completely irredeemable. You can become an ally. Just learn how to shut up and listen. Okay. So that brings us on to Rennie Edo Lodge's this one. Now, this is the book that Robin DiAngelo wishes she could have written had she only been born black. Rennie Edo Lodge is a black female writer. I hope I'm not misgendering there now. Actually, I don't care if I'm misgendering her, but um, so this is the book that Robin DiAngelo wishes she could have written because this is chock full of lived experience, the real deal, the real deal. A young person born in London, college, either Oxford or Cambridge educated, and uh, is here to tell us through their lived experience just how racist, how real this racism is, and to confirm, no, not merely hypothesize that systemic uh, racism in Western countries that privileges white people above all others and maintains systems of that kind of supremacy, racial supremacy. It's really happening. It's been in effect for centuries, and the hard work, the heavy graft, the heavy lifting, and the difficult conversations are only beginning. A great awakening will needs to occur. So again, we get the same basic structure. It's history that we all know, but where it's pitched to us that it's been withheld from us. This history has been withheld from us, but it's a patronizing and ludicrous assertion. But because of the skin color and the gender, of course, she gets to just say this completely unchallenged. But anyway, it's not that big a point. So the West and particularly Britain has been far more multicultural than that's been completely withheld from people. But the growing multiculturalism of Britain has run in parallel in track with a growing, racial animus towards minorities in the country. We can move on to more recent history where things like the BNP start to make an appearance in the National Front. So we can start, demonizing, we can start battening on that to demonize the, the country in general. We can then move on to there's the feminism question where the women specifically can get a morality punishment beating. There's the class struggle for a little bit of the old socialist values, it's let out reasonably well written, and there's a very there's a very interesting chapter about halfway through where Miss Edo Lodge interviews uh, Nick Griffin of the BNP, and she presents it as a kind of I've unedited this. I've merely asked my questions, and his words speak for themselves. Now you can say you can to talk about edifice of the BNP, what it's represented, and how it's progressed in a massively different conversation. But the fact of the matter is, if you just read the book and the interview as presented, she asks the most stilted leading questions, and to be fair to your man Griffin, he answers in a completely forthright and uninsulting manner and makes some fairly general points that aren't particularly controversial, I would have thought. But it's presented as some sort of bile and vicious racist insanity. It obviously she was listening to that interview with very different ears. Anyway, it's only a small part of the book, but so yes, I mean, I'm not doing a great service to those two books to just brush over the content like that. Really and truly, you would have to read them. I mean, you might have a vastly different experience of the books. But what I wanted to talk about was my opinion of why I think they're getting traction and what their real purpose is. Now, I think their real purpose is to keep a kind of hooks into white liberal middle-aged women, in my opinion. The kind of the NGO sort of advocacy group class, uh, to bombard them with a lot of you know, kind of passive aggressive sort of bullying and moral shaming. It really comes across in a lot of the, the different chapters where my conversations with women of my own age, my conversations with women in these groups within feminist circles, that seems to really be the target demo here. It seems to appeal to that sort of a kind of bitchy, catty urge to criticize mercilessly and marry that to trying to have that abusive sort of you're irredeemable. I'm telling you, you're irredeemable. Your own words convict you, but you can become of some use if you just stop your sniveling and do what you're told. That's I mean it's as the book progresses, that just comes across so repeatedly over and over again. So I'm convinced that that sort of self-flagellating middle-aged, you know, complacent liberal female is the real target demographic for those types of books. Um, and I, you know, it pains me to say it, but they're doing a bang up job. They are whacking into that target demo, like, and it's clearly, you know, it's getting traction. This is the blurbs. The most important book for me this year, Emma Watson, set to blow apart the understanding of race relations in this country. Stylist, the Black British Bible, Gal them, whatever that is, never heard of it. Okay, so all right, I'm being a little bit sarcastic there. I apart from my observation about its effectiveness for hitting its target demographic, um, if you wouldn't even have to be right wing if you were just the most milk toast centrist. You read enough of these type of CRT suffused books, and I'm telling you, you will get a shift in your thinking about much of these narratives that surround the so-called problem of racism in the West. And it won't be in the direction that folks that write those kinds of books goes. It'll be you'll really start taking a very jaundiced view of the whole thing. So anyway, yeah, it was it a book review? Not really. It was a two for though, so that's pretty good value. And a far longer video than I would normally do, but at the very least, I got a chance to articulate a few points about you know, the things that these two books that I collectively put about 10 hours of my reading life, actually probably closer to 15 hours of my reading life into. So At least I got to externalize a bit of that anyway, so it's not all bad anyway. So I'm trying to think of what would be suitable for a little information card up in the corner in terms of music. Uh, I'm thinking possibly, well, maybe to kind of cement this to the times we're in. Maybe a little bit of the road. I can show a little bit of solidarity with the Ukrainians. Maybe that'd be the best thing. Or maybe that would date it horrifically. So, or maybe this will all appear very anachronistically in a couple of years. Maybe everyone would be like, "Oh, wow, do you remember the times when they used to have those really deeply insulting and somewhat irresponsible books about racism?" That was a mercifully short-lived time. Maybe that's the way to go. Who knows? I somehow don't think it is though. These books are cementing in these books, and many more like them are cementing in a bit of like fairly intractable narrative now, and I really think it's worth paying attention to. Thanks for listening.